Blight of Angels. Throughout the ages, demonoids like Malak have attacked the cosmos one planet at a time in an attempt to infest entire realms and make them part of Hell's cosmic empire. Originally consisting of only a single realm, Hell's empire started as a prison realm the ancient Darrell had created to lock away demonoids and fallen angels. Eventually, these demons and demonoids escaped to the outside realms, where they destroyed all living beings and took control of their worlds. Once an entire realm was conquered, it was added to Hell's empire and considered one of the demonoids' new territory. No realm was safe from the possibility of conquest, and only beings as powerful as the angels dared to stand in the way of Hell's might. Though not an angel himself, Dacheldor fought against the demonoid forces in his own realm without ever realizing the scale of what he was getting involved in. After 10,000 Earth years of battle, he abolished the demonoids in his native plane and freed the Megaverse from their grasp. Once he was certain that the Megaverse was safe, he set up a service to protect the universes from possible demonoid survivors and went to work hunting for the last of their kind. This effort caught the attention of the angels, and they began to debate the possibility of using his services for their own goals. When they finally decided to meet Dacheldor, the message they delivered was almost impossible to accept. They told him his concept of the cosmos was infinitesimally small compared to its true size, and explained that what he referred to as a megaverse was only one of countless planes making up a single realm. They also explained that within his current realm there was an entire plane overrun by demonoids. If that plane was not taken back, the demonoids would use it as a staging ground to infest the realm, bringing about the end of all non-demonoid life and the dawning of a new hell. Dacheldor hated the sound of what he heard, but what the angels explained next affected him even more profoundly. The demonoids were all organized under the command of a single demonoid lord named Tiberium Zoltar. Zoltar had been a disciple of a being named Asmodekai, and teacher of a being named Malak. It had been under Zoltar's orders that Malak invaded the Strider homeworld and created a portal into the Hell's Empire to bring forth more troops. If not for Zoltar's conquest of the plane he invaded, Malak would never have ventured to the Strider homeworld, and Dacheldor's fate would not have been as it was. The angels followed this explanation with a description of the Hell's Empire, and the current count of the realms owned by the demonoids. 9. They then offered Dacheldor a chance to face the boundless demonoid hordes by their side. He accepted and quickly prepared himself for the trip across the plains, fully intending to face the being that had sent Malak his way to destroy every shred of his existence. Once he was ready, the angels placed their hands on Dacheldor's shoulders, and he felt his body vibrate and spasm. The reality he knew faded, and new surroundings appeared before him. The vibrating seemed to stop once the new surroundings solidified, but something told him that his body and soul had simply adjusted to the new vibration levels of this plane. His body had always vibrated. He had just never noticed it before. His new surroundings were rife with chaos and malice. Every world in every universe was experiencing a constant state of war, complete with millions of dying species fighting for their lives. Poisonous vapor poured from the bodies of the dead, and the skies were filled with thick green mist. Even in space the mist existed, and it seemed as if the demonic power of the Hell's Empire had grabbed hold of the entire plane and refused to let it go. The angels headed the only organized resistance against the demonoid hordes, but were ultimately lacking the numbers needed to win. Beings like Dacheldor were continually brought into the plane in an attempt to fill the empty ranks, but it was far from enough. The attempts to rescue the plane from devastation were failing miserably, and Dacheldor had arrived at the 11th hour. Devastation and sadness followed. In every battle, Dacheldor watched new comrades butchered at the hands of the Horde, and became witness to atrocities beyond any previous war he had experienced. His powers were no greater than those of his fellow soldiers, but his immortality kept him alive, and he soon learned that he would have to sacrifice parts of his own sanity in order to cope. For the first time, he learned to accept what he had become. His immortality was the only thing that kept his body in the condition necessary to fight. Throughout the entire plane, beings were losing their mind from terror. Dacheldor tried to go to the angels for help, but they were more interested in using his immortality as a weapon than in helping the crazed masses. They could not care less about the lives of the warriors involved in the battles. To them, this was a single sortie in the grand scheme. The angels viewed Dacheldor differently from the others, however, because he was their secret weapon. Since he could not be killed, his uses extended beyond a single battle. His immortality was seen as a way to use the demonoids' own power against them, so he was given far more attention than any other soldier. The angels never addressed his concerns, but they trained him to the best of their abilities. With their help, he managed to perfect his demon hunting techniques and learned to create a weapon called the Demon Edge. Comprised mostly of lead, this 7-foot sword weighed too much to be carried, even by Dacheldor, and he was forced to use spells to alter gravity and mass around the weapon when wielding it. The real power of the sword came from its ability to focus the wielder's spiritual energy through it, allowing Dacheldor to attack with the fury of every demonoid he had previously vanquished. It made him the most destructive force on the battlefield, allowing him to beat back the helplessness the Horde had instilled in him. He dominated his opponents with this new weapon, and took the demonic energies of those he destroyed. He became more powerful than any single angel or demonoid in the war, and was granted a form of respect from both allies and enemies. Strangely, his victories were all that the troops needed to regain their morale and shift the entire war for the better. His methods of taking the essence of his enemies also inspired the angels to create a new strategy that would ultimately end the war forever. The plan was sinister. They wanted to use the black magic of the old Strider Empire to take the souls of the demonoids they fought in one massive swoop. They believed that Dacheldor's knowledge of demonic energies combined with the teachings of Strider black magic could give him the power to absorb entire armies in seconds and cut the demonoid forces in half overnight. The consequences of this would fall only on Dacheldor, who would be forced to live with the memories and pain of every soul he ingested. Ultimately, though, his sacrifice would save an entire realm, a trade the angels were willing to make. Desperate to destroy the Horde, Dacheldor accepted the angels' offer and took up the task of learning the Strider's black magic. With the resources the angels provided, Dacheldor quickly understood all that had ever been recorded on the subject, and soon went about creating the necessary spell to absorb the demonoids en masse. This would forever brand Dacheldor as a Varshi, but he did not care. He needed to prove he would never be helpless before the demonoid horde again. He needed to destroy them all. Using his newfound abilities, he began to steal the souls of his enemies, absorbing both their powers and their memories. At first, he did this moderately by crippling the enemy forces, but as he proceeded, the taint of the Varshi took hold, and he hungered for greater power. He began absorbing entire armies of demonoids, followed by worlds, and finally universes. Soon he built up enough power to cast the spell that he had forged, and he absorbed half the demonoid forces en masse. But he was far from finished. He gained enough power from the mass absorption to do it again, so he absorbed all the demonoids in the plane, leaving no one alive but the resistance fighters. This feat had been exactly what the angels had wanted, but even they had not predicted the consequences of their actions. The memories that had once belonged to the demonoids became Dacheldor's, and he began to understand and sympathize with their viewpoints. He turned on the angels and used his abilities to absorb their souls. Their view of the soldiers as insignificant turned Dacheldor's view of them into food, and he turned on his fellow warriors and devoured them as well. The entire plane was emptied of life and pulled into Dacheldor as fuel for his new lust for power. In retaliation, high-ranking angels of Heaven's empire arrived to battle him. These beings were too powerful for him to absorb through the use of magic, so he accepted the ultimate Strider sacrilege on himself, the Black Tentacles of Shock. Designed as a permanent modification to the soul, the Black Tentacles of Shock could never be removed once accepted. They were said to grant the power to rip the souls out of anything they touched, but in Dacheldor's case, this was much worse. His soul and that of Shock was the same, so the tentacles he called were several magnitudes faster and stronger than expected. They were also much more voracious and almost never appeased. Having only obtained the memories of past hosts, and not the memories of the Nameless One itself, Dacheldor was unaware that the soul of Shock was his own soul. This left him unprepared for the pain and power the black tentacles would bring as they burst forth and affix themselves to his back. These translucent black tentacles writhed with hunger and attacked the high-ranking angels before Dacheldor could even recover from their creation. One touch from the lightning-fast tentacles tore the souls from the bodies of their victims and merged the victims' memories with their masters. It was instantaneous and everlasting, far more powerful than even the strongest soul steel. The tentacles made short work of the high-ranking angels, and their knowledge and power became Dacheldor's. He used this power to open a gateway into the Hell's Empire, through which he began to absorb the souls of the demonoids living there. He eventually opened a gateway into the Heaven's Empire to absorb the souls of the angels from there as well. It became apparent that the will of the tentacles had taken control, fueled by the clashing memories of the angels and demons. His actions were the result of an endless appetite for power, combined with an eternity of unbridled hatred. He could have remained that way forever, feeding on the heavens and hells, but just when it seemed like nothing would break his cycle of soul claiming, the being known as Tybrim Zoltar appeared. Having traveled beyond the plane for supplies, the leader of the demonoid forces had been absent during Dacheldor's culling of the demonoid souls. When he saw what Dacheldor was doing, he was shocked and disillusioned. "How?" he asked. "How could you be so powerful?" "Power?" Dacheldor said. "I have no power. I live in fear, and it has enslaved me." He turned his attention on Zoltar, and, as the tentacles reached for him, Dacheldor was given a moment of free will. Recognizing the opportunity, he forced his own soul's energy out of his body in an expanding orb that filled the entire plane. By the time the tentacles realized what he was doing, it was too late. He absorbed the energy again, infused with the matter of the plane itself, pulling everything that existed into a single point in space. Its mass became so immense that the entire plane transformed into a giant black hole, inside of which no force could escape or enter. Dacheldor effectively trapped himself and his monstrous tentacles inside the black hole forever, or so he thought. Once trapped within the black hole, he absorbed Tybrim Zoltar as his last spiritual meal. He vowed never to take the souls of others again, and to remain imprisoned until he had learned to control his tentacles. He also used all of his newfound powers to block the thoughts of the minds he had taken into himself, effectively erasing their memories at the cost of their powers. The knowledge he could keep, however, showed him that he had nothing more to fear from demonoids or angels. The only thing he really had to fear was himself.